Imagine this: you walk into a huge film studio, lights everywhere, cameras rolling, actors getting ready. Sounds exciting, right? But what if I told you that behind all that glamour, there was a man whose only job was to slap makeup on hundreds of extras from a giant bucket like painting a wall? And what if I told you that inside this studio, there were poets who dreamed of becoming famous writers, but ended up just drinking coffee and cutting newspaper clippings? That is the world of Gemini Studios, and today, Asokamitran is going to take us inside it. Hello class, welcome to Dilly Teacher, your very own channel where every chapter is explained so simply that you walk into the exam hall with full confidence and score maximum marks. Today, we are going to study one of the most fun and interesting chapters in your Flamingo book, Poets and Pancakes by Asokamitran. This chapter will make you laugh, think, and also teach you how the Indian film industry worked behind the scenes. So let's get started. Pancakes refers to the brand of makeup used there. It was literally called pancake makeup. So the title connects the world of art poets with the world of cinema glamour, pancakes, makeup. It is a clever, ironic title. Scene 1, the makeup department, the pancake factory. The first thing Asokamitran describes is the makeup department of Gemini Studios. And trust me class, this is where the fun begins. Gemini Studios had a massive makeup room. The studio used so much pancake makeup that the author says Gemini Studios probably used more pancake than all the other studios in India combined. The makeup came in big containers bought in truckloads. Now here is the interesting part. The makeup department had a strict hierarchy, like a ladder system. At the top was the chief makeup man. He was a Bengali. He only did the makeup of the main hero and heroine. Below him was the senior assistant. He handled the second hero and heroine. Then came the junior assistant. He did the main comedian's makeup. And at the very bottom, the office boy. His job? He had to apply makeup on all the extras, the crowd artists from a huge vessel. Imagine this: one man, one big bucket of makeup, and hundreds of faces. He basically painted people like you would paint a wall. Key point for boards. This hierarchy is a reflection of how Indian society and workplaces function. There is always a pecking order, and the person at the bottom does the most work but gets the least respect. Scene 2, the office boy, the frustrated poet. Now let's talk about this office boy. He is one of the most memorable characters in the chapter. This boy was not actually a boy. He was nearly 40 years old. He had been working in the makeup department for years, but he was stuck at the lowest level. He was frustrated, angry, and felt that nobody recognized his talent. He believed he deserved much more. He would often complain loudly to anyone who would listen. He would blame Subbu, another important character we will meet soon, for keeping him down. He believed that Subbu was the reason he never got promoted or recognized. But here is the twist: this office boy secretly thought of himself as a poet. He had dreams of being a great writer, but instead of writing masterpieces, he was stuck smearing makeup on extras. Key point for boards. The office boy represents the unfulfilled dreams of ordinary people. People who have talent but are trapped in a system that does not allow them to grow. He is a symbol of frustrated ambition. Scene 3, Subbu, the multi-talented genius. Now we meet the most fascinating character of the chapter, Kothamangalam Subbu. Subbu was the number 2 at Gemini Studios, second only to the boss, San himself. And class, this man was unbelievably talented. Let me list what he could do. He could act, he could write, he could direct scenes, he could solve any creative problem on set, he could write poetry, and he could come up with instant story ideas. If the director was stuck, Subbu would jump in and save the scene. If the boss needed a new angle for a film, Subbu would have 3 ideas ready before anyone else even understood the problem. Subbu was also incredibly loyal to the boss. He never challenged Vasan, he always supported him. Because of this loyalty, the boss trusted Subbu completely. But here is the sad part: because Subbu was so close to the boss, many people at the studio were jealous of him. They disliked him. They thought he got special treatment. The office boy we just met, he blamed Subbu for all his problems. Subbu also had a charitable nature. He would help anyone who came to his door. His house was always open. But this generosity also meant he was always surrounded by people who took advantage of him. Key point for boards. Subbu represents the duality of talent. He was brilliant, but also a victim of jealousy. His character shows that being talented and loyal does not always make you popular. Scene 4. The legal advisor, the lawyer who lost his job. Gemini Studios had a story department whose job was to look at scripts and decide which stories would make good films. Inside this department, there was a lawyer who worked as a legal advisor. Now this lawyer was a very smart man. He was extremely good at his job. But one day, something happened that ended the story department forever. A famous Tamil actress came to the studio and had a huge argument. She was angry about something and started shouting and screaming at the staff. The lawyer calmly pulled out a piece of paper and started writing down everything she said word by word. He was recording her entire outburst. The actress saw this, got scared, and her brief career at the studio ended. But here is the twist after this incident. The boss shut down the story department entirely. And the lawyer? He lost his job. The very skill that made him great, his legal mind, his habit of recording everything, led to the end of his career at the studio. Key point for boards. This is an example of irony. The lawyer's greatest strength became the reason for his downfall. It also shows how power works in the film industry. The boss's decisions were final and sometimes unpredictable. Scene 5. The political atmosphere at Gemini Studios. Now class, here is where the chapter gets a little deeper. Asokamitran talks about the political views of the people at Gemini Studios. Most people at the studio wore khadi handspun cloth associated with the Congress Party and the Freedom Movement. They appeared to support the Congress. But in reality, most of them were not very political. They did not really understand ideologies like communism or socialism. However, there was one thing almost everyone at the studio agreed on: they were anti-communist. They did not like communism. But the funny thing is, most of them did not even understand what communism really was. They just knew they were against it. Key point for boards. Asokamitran uses gentle satire here to show that people often hold political opinions without truly understanding what those opinions mean. It is a commentary on political ignorance and blindly following popular sentiment. Scene 6. The Moral Rearmament. Visit. In 1952, a group called the Moral Rearmament Army visited Gemini Studios. This was not a real army, it was an international movement started by a man named Frank Buchman. The MRA believed in solving the world's problems through moral and spiritual change, not through political revolution. About 200 people from nearly 20 different countries came to Gemini Studios. They performed plays and dramas with very simple, feel-good messages, things like, be good, be honest, change yourself and the world will change. Now, why did the boss invite them? Because the MRA was seen as anti-communist. Remember, the studio was already anti-communist, so the MRA's message fit perfectly. The MRA's visit had a surprising impact on Tamil drama and theater. Their style of simple, direct, moral storytelling influenced the way Tamil plays were written for years to come. Key point for boards. The MRA visit shows how international movements influenced Indian culture during the post-independence period. It also shows how anti-communist sentiment was spreading globally and reaching even film studios in Madras. Scene 7. The Mysterious English Visitor. This is one of the most interesting and funny parts of the chapter. One day, an Englishman visited Gemini Studios and gave a speech. He was a poet and editor. He spoke in English about things like democracy, freedom, and literature. He spoke for a long time. But here's the problem: the audience at Gemini Studios was mostly Tamil speaking. They could not understand his English properly. They had no idea what he was talking about. They just sat there, confused, polite, and completely lost. Nobody at the studio could figure out who this man was or why he had come. He was not from any famous newspaper. He was not a film person. He came, he spoke, he left, and everyone was confused. Key point for boards. This scene is full of gentle humor. It shows the communication gap between the English-speaking literary world and the Tamil film industry. It also builds a mystery that will be solved later in the chapter. Scene 8. The Mystery Solved. Stephen Spender and the God That Failed. Years later, Asokamitran finally discovered who that mysterious English visitor was. It happened when he was browsing through a book called The God That Failed. This book was published around the 50th anniversary of the Russian Revolution. It contained essays by 6 famous writers who had once believed in communism but later became disillusioned and left. Those 6 writers were André Gide, Richard Wright, Ignacio Silon, Arthur Koestler, Louis Fisher, the same Louis Fisher who wrote your Indigo chapter, and Stephen Spender. When Asokamitran read the name Stephen Spender, everything clicked. He realized that the confused English poet who had visited Gemini Studios years ago was none other than Stephen Spender, a famous English poet, essayist, and editor of a literary magazine called The Encounter. Scene 9, the narrator's own life. Finally, let us talk about Asokamitran himself. Throughout the chapter, he describes his own job cutting newspaper clippings and filing them. It sounds boring, right? And it was. He felt small and insignificant in the massive machinery of Gemini Studios. But here is the beautiful thing: this small job gave him the ability to observe everything. He watched the office boy's frustration, Sabu's genius, the lawyer's downfall, the political confusion, the MRA visit, and the mysterious English visitor. And years later, he turned all these observations into this wonderful, sharp, and witty chapter that you are reading today. Oh class, what did we learn today? That behind every glamorous film studio, there are frustrated poets, loyal geniuses, confused politicians, and people painting faces from buckets. Asokamitran showed us that if you observe the world carefully, even from the smallest, most boring corner, you can write something that people will read and study 70 years later. Remember, your experiences are never wasted. Every boring class, every difficult chapter, every frustrating day, it is all material. One day you might turn it into something, just like Asokamitran did. See you in next chapter.